The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
Awkwardly, I don't know why, but
it's a thumbs up. We're ready.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Minnesota Soccer Podcast. I am not in the studio. Nick and Tom are allegedly in the studio, but I can't prove anything. They have deniability from me.
Listen, everyone is happy to be out of the studio. It smells distinctly like fish.
Yeah, I feel strongly like I made the correct decision to still be in Iowa at this point and just comfortably relaxing on the couch in a room that doesn't smell like fish.
Hanging out in a city with full employment. See? You guys know stuff now. You guys know stuff.
Tom, you really need your own podcast to talk about all the random stuff that fills your head. Really, you really do. Just, you have the power. Just do it yourself.
yeah.
Tom's random thoughts.
Anyway, we're out here. David Naylor, Nic Hallett, Tom Schreier. There was a lot of soccer played this week. Minnesota United played some soccer. A lot of World Cup teams played some soccer, and we will take you through every bit of it. Let's start with the happy, because I like good things. Have you seen a better hat trick than Darwin Quintero's hat trick on July 4th, Nic Hallett?
Honestly, I haven't. And I'm going through the entire encyclopedia of my soccer knowledge and soccer experience. And the reason that is, and it's very simple, so many hat tricks, whether it be hockey, whether it be soccer, other things, they always include like a goal. Harry Kane's hat trick in this World Cup is a perfect example. They always usually include one scrap goal, just like kind of bounced in for that guy or wasn't that great of a play and it worked out. That was not the case with Quintero's. Quintero's were all sublime quality, each goal on its own merit. I've never seen anything like it. It was stunning.
It was absurd to see it in the stadium. I actually got lucky for the timing of the third goal. I had walked down to say hi to some people at halftime, and it just stayed in the goal that United were attacking in the second half to watch the first 15 minutes of the second half. And to see that perspective on those second two goals, just incredible. The third goal was out of this world. Unbelievable.
The third goal is so swaggy because he had it's completely audacious to ever chip like a pro goalie. If you ever do that, that's just incredible. To do it twice in one game, again, unheard of. I mean, the gall to even try it, let alone execute it. Quintero, it was unbelievable. And I mean, and again, we talk about a couple of guys in this podcast who've watched a lot of soccer over the years. But one of the people, on this planet who has watched more is Adrian Heath. And even him after this game, he was saying the exact same things. I've never seen anything like it. One of the best hat tricks of all time. All these things, they come from Adrian Heath, freaking Everton legend in his own right, and has been coaching and watching soccer high-level stuff his entire life. So I think that speaks everything.
It was nuts, and it was the game was probably the most satisfying game that United have played yet this year, even though as I wrote last night, the goal that they gave up in stoppage time to make it 4-3 for Toronto was a warning sign of what Saturday looked like. And it was satisfying. It was cool. I don't think you can understate how far this Toronto FC is from the Toronto FC that set a points record and won the double last season in MLS. This is a bad team.
Well, it is on some levels. They're certainly in bad form, but I mean, a lot of it's the same pieces, and Giovinco and Bradley played full part in this match as well. And as you just pointed out, they're only one season removed from all those accolades.
Man, Bradley was not good. I'm just going to say it. He did not look like he was with the pace of the game. Passes off target, just getting dunked on repeatedly by Darwin and control in midfield.
Yes.
He was not at the pace that he needed to be at against a Minnesota team that aren't very good.
Right.
That's the thing about Toronto is we kept saying at the start of the season that this was going to be their like Champions League holdover. They didn't play their full squad in the league to start, and they just haven't turned it around ever. Like, the fact that they got a point at Sporting Kansas City yesterday was a very good point for them. They're still 3 points behind United. Like, and you're right. The squad's all there. Giovinco had a great goal in the second half of this game, but like, I do not watch enough Toronto to understand like everything has gone wrong for this team this year, and for Minnesota to have beaten them in a relatively comfortable fashion, you have to say,
Yeah.
Strange.
Very, very much so. I would still, again, I think you bringing a measured opinion to that, and that's fair. You're bringing some cold water, which we all know I love, and it's fair. But I would still put this on the mantelpiece as possibly the best win in Minnesota United's franchise history. Considering,
definitely.
Considering the opponent, considering the scoreline, considering the performances, it's this game, and then maybe Atlanta, the comeback in Atlanta against Atlanta United last year. There's a couple other ones that are decent, but honestly, I think this one's clearly in the race, if not the best win and best game in franchise history, and certainly one of the most entertaining. God, it was brilliant.
The Atlanta comeback last season is the one that springs to my mind as the one that would compete with it, just because of not necessarily the history of Atlanta as a club, obviously, but like the form that they were in, the intimidation factor of playing in that stadium that Atlanta has created over the last year and a half now. Like that's the other one that would spring to mind as the best victory in Minnesota's MLS history.
Yeah, another reason that one's so cool is because the only previous matchup against Atlanta was the first game or second game that season. And Atlanta,
they got the boom dropped on them.
Yeah, got smashed, and so to come back and beat them at home was pretty awesome. So, but still, I mean, taking down Toronto, like you just said, reigning points, leaders in MLS last year. I don't know how you top that.
Well, and you have one of the better records in MLS Minnesota history. You have the first hat trick in Minnesota United's MLS history, and you have, I don't think they've scored 4 in a game this year, even if Darwin, exceptional quality, created 3 of those. I really liked Miguel Ibarra's 4th goal, the second goal of the game. I loved how that goal was created by Francisco Calvo and Miguel Ibarra.
Yeah, I was gonna say who served that into him? Frickin' Calvo, man.
Francisco Calvo playing in the back 3 of the 3-5-2, which we talked about last week as a possibility of happening, and I do think a significant portion of why Saturday's game, the pretty embarrassing bad loss to Houston, 3-5-2 doesn't look the same without Calvo in it.
I think that's something to be said, and I think that was one of the brilliances that I took away from the 5-3-2, whether it be against Toronto or prior to that, is that what's so great about it is that it, in a lot of ways, it not only, right, in some tactical changes or some strategy changes, you hope to make your team better, right? Or you hope to make your weaknesses less obvious or less prominent. And what's so amazing about this 5-3-2 when it works for United like it did against Toronto, it does both those things. It doesn't just do one or the other. Like Calvo, he needs more cover behind him because he'll make radical plays and risky plays. And playing in a 3-back system does that. You need more width in general. And just more defensive cover. The 5-3-2 does that. Christian clearly needs help up top right now. You're putting Darwin up higher, closer to goal, and now he's got more chances at goal, and Christian has help. It does that. It just affects the whole group so well. To me, when it's functioning properly, the amazing thing about it is it hides everyone's weaknesses and it promotes everyone's strengths. It's amazing.
Okay, pause. Let's talk about Christian Ramirez, since you got me called out on a tweet by Christian Ramirez today, and we're going to talk about this in the podcast.
Wait, did he call you out?
Oh, he liked that tweet that you tweeted. He's watching.
Wow. I love this. I love this.
Hilarious. I haven't
this is what happens when you tag the dude Like, we already know he searches his name. He's going to find the tweet if you tag him in it.
This is hilarious. We got podcast on podcast thrown under the boat. That's awesome.
Let's talk about Christian Ramirez for a second. So, I tweeted a couple of times during the Houston game that Ramirez kind of wasn't involved in the game. Nic Hallett comes in and tags Christian Ramirez in a tweet that involved that, which, by the way, was not the most offensive tweet I tweeted about him. Like, I was heavy on him, but here are the facts. Christian Ramirez has scored 4 goals in over 1,000 minutes of play this season. He has scored 1 goal in a Minnesota United win this season, the 2-0 win against Montreal on May 26th. His 2 backup strikers have scored 0 combined goals. I don't care how promising Toye has looked at times, and the fact that Toye is coming in for Ramirez as a guaranteed sub pretty much every game at about the 60th minute at this rate, you're not getting anything from either of them. So, yes, as the transfer window opens on Tuesday, I think Minnesota United should buy a striker. Nic Hallett, your response.
I'm still so giddy that took place. I was hoping he would like it just to call you out. Like,
wow, look at this.
That's just so
Naylor.
awesome.
I feel bad. I what a Hallett move.
Move.
I think, as much as I was, just trying to egg him on a little bit in that situation, and I still do really believe. I still do believe in Christian's game. I've covered him for years, and he is a quality player, and he has great potential in him. But something it does seem off for him this season, and I don't know. It's really one of those things that's hard to put a finger on it. He himself, even if he was sitting in this fish-smelling studio with us right now, might himself be like, I don't know, guys. Like, I still feel good. Like, at practice, I'm killing it. And in games, like, it's just I'm not getting quite the bounces I need. I don't know what he would say. I feel like he might say that. And because he's just off, and Houston last night was a good example of that because he got put in 2 times. One would have been nullified for offsides anyway, but he was put in twice, basically 1-on-1. And like the Christian of old buries that every time, and he's just not. And I don't know what it is. And yeah, it'd be really interesting if he was very honest, what he'd have to say. Because he might not know himself.
My biggest thing is, in terms of the transfer window acquisitions, I think he just needs competition. Like, because Mason coming in for him is what it is, and Mason getting MLS minutes is good. Mason isn't scoring. If you bring in someone that will actually score goals and maybe is going to have better chemistry with the offensive lineup that they're putting forward, whether it's playing next to Darwin or playing in front of Darwin, like, because Darwin is the piece of this that isn't changing. Like, that is a cold, hard fact at this point. Darwin is going to be where he is, whether that's at the top next to a striker in the 3-5-2 or directly behind a striker or 2 in a midfield formation. That's not going to change. And if you can find some kind of thing from a different striker that is going to play better with Darwin than what Christian has seemed to do, you should go out and get that player.
I really don't think you're miles off. I think there's definitely some meat on that bone. Like I said prior, I really still do believe in Ramirez's quality. I don't know why it's not presenting itself, but honestly, yeah, right now my power rankings for players or positions that should be added to this team, it's still center mid for me, as I've waxed on about on previous episodes of the podcast. For numerous reasons, it's still,
and I think that's still very fair. I'm not going to disagree with that at all.
Yeah. But I think striker would probably be my number 2, given what's going on with the team right now. But and again, like I pointed out 2 examples in the Houston game that lend you credence for your argument. But there's actually the rest of that game is a kind of a lot of examples of why it's not Christian's fault. Like, the team was atrocious last night. Just had and maybe just because none of them had energy. They're playing 3 games in 8 days and all that. That's probably why. And that's really all that game is about, is that they were just all tired, frankly, or just all poor, or both. And so that's not on him, and he can't do anything about that, and he's not getting enough service and enough play around him.
I totally agree with.
Yeah, and a good example, even in last night's game when they did get the ball up to him, you could just tell there wasn't enough support because the rest of the team didn't have the time to move up the field with him. So
that's a conversation I had on Twitter last night. The question with the formation last night I thought was a very fair one because Calvo suspended for yellow card accumulation. You bring in why am I blanking on names all of a sudden? Good Lord. Tyrone Mears as the third center back in that, as opposed to Wyatt Omsberg or a different option in that, rather than shifting to like the 4-2-3-1 that the team has played most of the season at this point, with two center backs and players in more positions of comfort and the lack of your third starting center back, essentially. And whether or not that would have helped against Albert Thalys and Romel Kyoto, just destroying the flanks of the team. And Heath has talked about one of the flaws of the 3-5-2 is sometimes United don't get enough players forward. And with Kyoto and Elise doing what they were able to do, Miguel Ibarra and Alexi Gomez could not get forward, which probably relates to the fact of when Ramirez is getting the ball, when Quintero is getting the ball, you're right, they don't have enough players with them. So was that a problem of, we've waxed on about how good the 3-5-2 is with the pieces they have. When it's disrupted like this, should United have deployed a different formation to maybe be able to get more help to their forward players?
Yeah, it's a very astute point and the right discussion to have, given the Houston game and given this week's games, because that's exactly what the two wingers for Houston did. They completely disrupted the formation. I think Heath was right to start with the 5-3-2, given its success and given that it might be the best formation to go forward with. But yeah, that's why I gave him a low manager rating in the player ratings after last night's game, was because, to your point, once he realized it was being disrupted because of the wing play of Houston, it would have made more sense to switch it to the original formation, some variation of a 4-5-1, to allow the two outside backs to deal with them and allow more players to help keep possession higher up the field. He never did that. He never changed. And I would just,
This sounds literally like the same thing over and over, right? We always talk about how he's so set in his mind.
Yeah.
With how, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, or my thought was he almost was I see how this game's going. My guys are dead. Everyone's dead tired.
How does a Wednesday, so this is a Wednesday, Saturday, right? How does that?
Yeah, and then a weekend game prior to that, so bang, bang, bang.
So how does that compare to a Thursday, Sunday what would that be? I'm trying to think
in the NFL?
In the NFL.
That's the thing. The NFL
Sunday,
is very
Thursday.
aware of it, so they really insulate that from happening, right? You would never go Thursday to Sunday in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
Sunday to Thursday, I guess.
It would be more like how the NBA has worked to reduce back-to-backs in previous seasons, if we're going to make a schedule comparison. The Timberwolves, for comparison, I've written about this numerous times in the last couple of years, actually. The Timberwolves last season, as opposed to the season before, in 2016-17, the Timberwolves had two stretches of 4 games in 5 days, 2 back-to-backs with 1 day between them, where last season they had 0 stretches like that. That's a thing the NBA has worked to reduce. And that 4 games in 5 days, that's kind of what this past week, it was Friday, Wednesday, Saturday was the 3-game stretch. And they've got another one starting next week of Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, I think. So it's a thing that happens, and adding this friendly the middle of this week, even if none of the starters play in this game, you have to wonder a little bit about the fixture congestion of this month.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Well,
so at some point, I'm not sure it lines up with the NFL at all, but I think you've seen in other sports leagues the way this is, and this is just a thing that happens. You can imagine if United had advanced in the U.S. Open Cup, they'd have another game. I believe that would have been either this weekend or next weekend, or maybe next midweek, that would have made this even worse. Like,
yes. Well, and so why this week was especially tough, or like you say, David, if they keep advancing in the U.S. Open Cup, that it affects Minnesota more because their depth is such an issue. So these situations hurt them more than it does other teams.
Yep, and that's why a transfer window is an important thing that we need to have more than half an eye on as it reopens. I know I've seen on and off on Twitter they've been linked with a couple of more Latin American players.
You say we should talk about transfers like Heath mentions them after every game or something.
Yeah, right? Just like he mentions goals-changing games. Which, speaking of goals-changing games, Nic Hallett, you are a soccer coach. How do you fix a team that's given up 7 of its last 12 goals from set pieces?
Seriously, great question. Because it seems like the Minnesota coach with the most accolades and the best resume doesn't have an answer for that. So I don't know how I'm supposed to, but I can certainly try. It's unbelievable. Whatever they're doing, do something else. Like whatever you've been doing, do something else. I don't know what their problem is, but it is so horrid, and the stats just bear that out, and the eye test bears that out. But what's most concerning is that it's been the problem the whole time he's been in charge. Set pieces have always been an issue for this team,
and it's well past the point where you can put it on one guy, because like early in the season we talk about Francisco Calvo gets beat on a set piece once a game, and tonight it was Boxall getting beat on both the headed goals by Felipe Senderos. Like, one-on-one, just got out-muscled, outworked to the ball, and that, like, you're not pinning that on Calvo this time. Like, the first one's kind of tricky because Boxall's the guy on Senderos, but it was the header one on Coleman's guy that led to Senderos's the opening goal. And arguably Coleman was fouled. Like, that guy completely jumped on him and pushed his shoulders, leapt on top of Coleman, essentially. I was kind of surprised. I was actually pretty upset just from a fair standpoint that they didn't review it. Like, you have VAR in MLS, so I don't understand why that would. And it just kind of seemed clear that guy kind of, he mounted Coleman. And so that's a fair point.
So that one, you want to blame a little bit on Coleman on some level, but I also felt like he was kind of fouled. So that one. And then Boxall, there's no reacting that quickly necessarily. I wouldn't blame Boxall on not stopping Senderos. But the second one was
second one I'm calling Boxall out. Like, he just got beat.
And it's like a picturesque version of like their problem. Like in the end, Senderos looks like he's just in acres of space by himself right in front of United's goal. Like,
yep.
And there's literally like 5 or 6 United defenders surrounding him, but nowhere near him. It was stunning.
It was not great, and it continues to be a thing. Like, you have the last goal of the Toronto game, you have goals you have the goal in the Dallas game. Like, it just keeps happening. Like, and he's talked about it before. Like, the quote I had of 4 goals from 6 was after the Dallas game. Like, it's not news. They've talked about it. They're aware of it.
Yeah, I wonder too if it's not like becoming like a mental thing where like all the players, once they give up a corner, they're like, "Oh crap, this is."
Well, I know for sure. Every time United give up a corner, I'm like, "Here comes a goal," and I was right twice this past game.
Yeah,
Are there any quotes from players or anything we've heard? I know some of those games. That was in Houston, right? So that's less covered. But
it was in Houston, yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading a story on it. I don't remember the players saying anything, but it's got to be a mental. You know what I mean? Like, here it comes again.
Coleman talked about it after the Dallas game for sure. I'm not sure if I wrote those quotes into my post game coverage of that game, but I know we talked about it.
And he confirmed kind of what we're saying here.
Yeah, it just sucks. It sucks. It doesn't feel good. We're working on it. We've talked about it in practice.
Yeah, what's so bizarre is like corner kicks are such a like random like it's just so sporadic in there. Like, anything can happen and bounces can go wherever. But I mean, the trend is showing that United is the problem, and that's just a fact at this point. But I mean, I don't know. In tight games, the World Cup's a good example. In super tight games, a lot of times set piece goals are a factor or a difference maker, and
yeah,
they just are.
You'll see that as a good transition when we talk about England in a bit. But it's bizarre, but it's bizarre. It's random, but at the same time, there are teams that have this problem. Like you see, I think Liverpool, one of these last 2 years, and I think it was this year, just were awful on set pieces, gave up goals all the time. And it happens to teams. And Minnesota, it's been true the last 2 years, and they've got to find a way to fix it because they've keep losing games on the back of just this. If they try to play an entire game without giving up a corner kick, that's not a feasible strategy. But that's essentially what they need to do at this point because they gave up one goal from open play in this game that was after the game had been settled. They were generally pretty good in the final third in open play. Now, whether they could have done more about Elise and Kyoto on the flanks is a different discussion. But they cleaned up pretty well.
Here's what I'd say. I think we can kind of just scientifically, if you will, come to a kind of a conclusion. And that's, do other teams, like you just said, clearly Minnesota United, and the stats bear this out, this is an issue for them. So there's other teams who are not having this problem, playing the same teams, but able to clear their set pieces. So based on that, we can deduct that it's the individuals on Minnesota United. The most important players when it comes to corner kicks, the most prominent players are the center backs defensively. They're the largest. They're the ones who are expected to win the most aerial duels and get the headed clearances. So therefore, we can honestly and objectively surmise that it's Calvo, it's Kallman, it's Omsberg, and it's Boxall. Omsberg hasn't even played that much, and I can vividly remember at least once, if not twice, when he's gotten beat on set pieces. So and we've talked about Calvo numerous times. You just pointed out Boxall. I pointed out Kallman. Honestly, as much as I think those guys do a lot of good things, I think this is across the board a weakness for that group of center backs. And I think, again, like I said, objectively, it's pretty factual that they're what's at issue.
Yep, and that is what it is. If you're going to take a degree of optimism into the upcoming week's fixtures, they play. They have the friendly against Saprissa from Costa Rica on Wednesday, and then play Real Salt Lake on.
That's going to be fascinating to see what lineup they play in that friendly because it's going to be the most backups of backups.
I was say Heath said it's going to be a bunch of guys who basically haven't played this year, so expect to see 0 starters.
Yep. I bet both Cameroonians play.
I would say I bet we see Ounde Ekwolo for the first time this year. That was my pretty easy money bet.
Yes.
So yes, the next MLS fixture is Real Salt Lake. And the one fact I will say about Real Salt Lake, 2 things. Number 1, United's next 4 games now are at home, which, as we know, including the friendly next 3 MLS games, as we know, they've been god-awful atrocious on the road this year and been okay at home. They are legitimately the worst road team in the MLS. They are 1-8-0, 3 points on the season. Only, I think, 3 other teams are on 4 points on the season with 1 win and 1 draw. And conveniently, one of those is Real Salt Lake. So Saturday might have a little more optimism than you would think to it, because Salt Lake have been a little bit better than United this year, but are atrocious on the road. So I would hesitantly say that United could have an okay time on Saturday against Salt Lake, just based on those stats.
I like how you built a fantastic argument of why they should win, and then you're but I'm hesitant
because they're 1-8 on the road, right, this season.
Yeah, but it's home.
Road.
Oh, gotcha.
Home.
And their 1 win was on March 10th.
Yeah. I would concur. You can be very optimistic that they will do decently well on this home stretch. Who really knows? But yes, good, very good reason to be optimistic.
So let's close the United box because we got some World Cup to talk about. We are up to the semifinals of the tournament. We had the round of 16 and the quarterfinals played out this week. Nic Hallett, who is your most surprising team in the semifinals?
Actually, I would say, based on how the round of 16 shook out, I would actually go Belgium. Just because, not because of their quality isn't there. Their quality is obvious and there for everyone to see. But just I thought they would have trouble with Brazil. and obviously that was a great game. But I really, I felt Brazil would handle business, and Belgium proved to be the coolest of customers in that matchup. And also, Belgium went down 2-0 to Japan and then came all the way back. So, honestly, England's road to get there was relatively easy by comparison of other teams, and Croatia's road was pretty darn easy, actually. It's the easiest, and they actually kind of limped there still, so it's a bit concerning. And then France was one of the favorites coming in, and the team that I said last podcast was my prediction to win. So I'm not surprised by them. So, yeah, Belgium.
And what I do think is fun that if you look back to that last podcast, all three of our predictions to win are still alive in the semifinals.
Well, because Tom's just riding Belgium.
Yeah, baby, waffles.
Belgium, and it works.
I forget what's yours again.
England.
Oh, nice. How about...
I will say my most surprising team getting to the semifinals was England, because they went to a penalty shootout and didn't lose.
That was stunning. That was amazing to watch. How about us predicting on the last podcast that Spain would get knocked out against underdog Russia, and it frickin' happened. You heard it here first, folks.
And then Russia blew the next game, right? It blew the penalty.
Yeah, but we didn't predict that.
We
predicted the Spain game. We predicted they would knock out frickin' Spain. That is unbelievable that we accurately predicted that.
And shout out to this Russian team who did go out in penalties against Croatia, but they were so much better quality on the field than anyone expected going into this tournament. For them to take out Spain and really come within a couple inches of taking out Croatia, too, who were one of the favorites to come out of that side of the bracket. Like, they had an excellent tournament, had a great showing for their home tournament. And while they are not moving on, that's much respect. Denis Cherishev's goals were some of the best this tournament saw in just about every game we played. So much respect to the Russian team, even though they are done.
And honestly, like, that Croatia game was a coin flip in a lot of ways. If they win that, England is a good team, but definitely, on a game by game basis, Russia could have won that game. They could have made it conceivably actually all the way to the final. I think there's zero chance they would ever be able to beat France or Belgium. So I don't think that they would have actually been a threat to win it, but they could have made it to the final, and that would have been amazing.
It would have been an amazing story, because they were, if I remember correctly, they were the lowest FIFA ranked team in the entire tournament entering the tournament, which the FIFA rankings have their problems. And the host nation, obviously, not playing very many games because they're not playing qualification. So the ranking slips by nature, but it's a statement in and of itself.
They were definitely one of the lower ones. There's no way they should be lower than Panama and Saudi Arabia, but regardless.
That's correct, but you take what you're given, and you make your sweeping statements based on that.
Yeah, there you go.
So, France, Belgium. Tom, Nick, fight for your teams. Go.
I literally picked Belgium, I think, because it was like the hipster pick. And I tried to be ironic, and now it bit me in the ass. Now I have to back up this team.
They were the trendy pick in the Atlantic, and you read the Atlantic, so that.
I was wondering where you're going with that. Yeah, no, I forget where I read that, but it's been fun seeing the team that I picked out of a hat basically win. I've heard France is the favorite to win. Like, I've heard with their young talent.
Yeah, I think they might be slight favorites.
What?
I would say now they are. I'm not sure they were the favorites going in.
Yeah. I'm saying now.
Top 5 going in for sure.
Yeah, slight favorites. Yep, against Belgium in that game.
So
then Nick, you do think the winner of that game wins it all, correct?
Absolutely. Whoever wins that game will likely win the World Cup. In a one-off, anything could happen, goes to penalties, but I would ostensibly, whoever wins Belgium-France is the World Cup winner.
To this point, because I think with the NCAA tournament, sometimes even before we know who wins, we'll say, oh, this was one of the better ones or whatever. When you look at the Final Four, where does this rank for you among World Cups you remember? It just seems like this is tons of upsets, big-time games.
What's so cool is it's a great question. What's so cool, as I've watched every World Cup very closely since 2006, so not a ton, but not nothing, 4 or so, and to me, this whole time, early in the group stages, to me, this felt like the best World Cup that's ever been that I've seen, and it's that exact momentum has flowed through the round of 16 and the quarterfinals. And what's really cool to see is I've felt that way. It's the best World Cup I've ever seen. But what's really cool is on Twitter I follow legends of football who've been watching or much older and been watching for years, and other writers who've been watching for years, and so many of them are saying that too. And that's really stunning.
Where are you at with that, Naylor?
It's certainly been the most interesting. I don't think that's a question. Like the stat that pops out to me is this is the first World Cup in the history of the tournament that none of Brazil, Germany, and Argentina have reached the semifinals. First time.
Wow.
And just on that notion alone, it's like it has been so like you don't know what's going to happen going into any given game. Like you see Japan, very unfavored, very unflattering, go 2-0 up against Belgium and look like they have a pretty good shot of knocking out one of the favorites on that side of the bracket. Didn't do so, but that would have been an amazing shock. You have Russia knocking out Spain. You have Belgium taking on Brazil, winning that game. You have England's side of the bracket in which literally any team of those 8 could have gotten to the World Cup final. I think that is a very fair statement with Sweden and Switzerland on the bottom of the list, but like anything could have happened for any of those teams. It's been the beauty of it as an American viewer is it has been a wonderful World Cup to watch as a neutral. That's the best thing about it. It's been great to watch as a neutral.
Yes.
So that's my second question. Do you think it's mattered? It has to matter in some capacity. The U.S. was not in it. But how much do you think it matters? I feel like people are still talking about it. I feel like it just casually. I see it on ESPN all the time. I hear people talking about it kind of just in passing. Obviously, I kind of pick up on it or I'm listening for it. But it seems like it's a big deal, even though the U.S. is out of it. And the U.S. would be out of it anyways at this point.
Honestly, there is a lot of negatives to it. But honestly, at this point, I think to David's point, it being such a great World Cup from a neutral perspective has aided that and made it good for everyone. But honestly, as, again, someone who's a part of like the grassroots of U.S. soccer and developing these players that might go play for the national team, them missing out of this World Cup and then it still being so fun at the same time for everyone, I think it only whets that appetite even more and makes everyone, whether it be the coaches in this country and the players in this country, more hungry for it to be a part of it going forward and not just take it for granted that we're a part of CONCACAF, so we'll be able to walk there every year, every 4 years. To have that extra added, like, that hunger that we could miss out, that scarcity, I honestly think it could be a huge benefit for the U.S. That's how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, you're one other fact for it being the most interesting tournament for a neutral to watch. There has been one game that has finished with no goals scored.
Yeah. Insane. Yeah. Insane. I can't believe that. And again, all these credit we're giving to this World Cup. The next 3 games, well, technically there's 4 with the third place game, but the 2 semifinals and the final could be 0-0s and all go to penalties, and it still would rank as possibly the best World Cup of all time. Even if and that's not even likely. These next 3 are probably going to be great. So, yeah, it's amazing.
It's been a wonderful tournament to watch, and I'm excited to see how it finishes up. So I think I have pretty clear understanding of what both of your picks are, but I want you guys to pick the final 4 games of the tournaments. Nic Hallett, France-Belgium, who wins?
I'm sticking with my prediction that the trend of the European winner, the Euro winner, coming in the next 2 years and then winning the World Cup continues. Spain 2008, then comes in 2010, wins the World Cup. Germany 2012, then comes in 2014, wins the World Cup. 2016, Portugal won the Euros, but as I said, they were lucky to win that game. France was the better team the entire tournament and in that game, but was unable to win. I think France should have won the Euros 2 years ago. I think they'll win this World Cup and keep that trend going. Belgium will take the third place game, whoever they play against. I would say, gosh, to me, like Croatia, England is such a coin toss. But
how is England not better? That confounds me.
But I mean, dude, they're in the semifinal of a World Cup. What do you mean? What do you want them to be?
Well, I just think of England as as a soccer powerhouse. I guess I don't know much about Croatia, and so maybe that's why I'm selling them short.
What's happened? You're going into a lot longer narrative necessarily. But the quick answer would be that they are a powerhouse and have the relative talent than these Frances, Spains, and Brazils. But they've lacked the mental strength. and they've really folded under pressure numerous other times. That's been their problem.
I see.
And that's what's so different about this
Croatia
team.
was fun. I watched that game. I think I was with Dane in a bar. We were in Vegas, and it was like people were floored. Like, it just like that one pass that guy made, like in stride. I was just like, holy, God.
Well, and to Croatia's credit, like, if you're not watching European soccer on a regular basis, you might not know this, but Croatia's got some big name players who are very, very good at what they do.
Oh yeah, Croatia's talent is comparable to England's for sure.
100%. And they've done it on the biggest stage, like Mandzukic, Modric. You've seen them play Champions League finals, big stage, all this jazz. And Modric has had his penalties have been interesting, but he's had a phenomenal tournament.
Yeah, his penalties have been a bit
interesting.
Sketchy is what I would say.
Sketchy's a good word.
I would say that honestly, like, based on the fact that Croatia had to go to penalties with Denmark and with Russia, you'd have to say you'd think England would be the favorite. But I think saying that England's the favorite is kind of a fool's errand. I think that game's completely 50-50.
Pick it.
I don't want to pick England.
I love this
because
Naylor.
I want England to win, and so I'm gonna pick Croatia.
All right,
So
I respect that.
I'm going to go.
And
England.
then
the
I'm
smart
picking-
thing to pick if you want England to win.
Exactly. So I got Croatia, France. France takes the final.
I'm going to go.
England, Belgium in the third place game.
Belgium.
Okay.
Belgium's definitely whoever wins France Belgium wins the World Cup. Whoever loses wins third place.
I got to stick with Belgium. So I'm going to have your third place game as the final. I'm going to go.
Okay.
I'm going to go Belgium because I have to at this point. I'm all in.
You're all in. Yep.
I'm basically a resident at this point, and or citizen, and I guess I'm going to go England, and I think it's Belgium's year, baby.
It'd be cool too because I don't know if this has ever happened. If two teams from the same group have ever played in a World Cup final.
Oh, that's
what would happen, and so that'd be really interesting.
Well, and that Belgium-England game was both teams rested so many of their players.
Oh, that game is immaterial. That game means nothing to the final if they play in the final.
And you also have to point out that France winning is the only result of this tournament that will result in France and England. But if Croatia or Belgium win this tournament, it would be a first World Cup for both of those countries. For England, it would only be their second World Cup. For France, it would also only be their second World Cup, I believe. So you have, France has been around. France has been in the final twice and twice recently. But you have four sides who really don't have that much history in terms of getting to this stage of the tournament.
That's what I would say would be this awesome billing if Belgium and Croatia both make it there, because then you have a first time winner no matter what, and that would be riveting.
If you're Fox, if you have to care about the ratings, what do you want?
France, England.
You want France, England, no matter what.
Sure.
Yeah.
That would be a sick final too.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only final I don't want to see would be and I shouldn't even say it like that. I'm still going to be at the edge of my seat, and it's going to be awesome. But France-Croatia frankly does less than the other three possibilities does.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I was just thinking that because Belgium, England, France, England, Belgium, Croatia, they've all got their storylines with them. I am going to take the Fox executives picks and take France, England.
There you go.
And Belgium, Croatia to the third place game, and
that just
Croatia.
sounds like a third place game, and the other one sounds like a final. France, England sounds like the final of a World Cup.
Yeah,
Belgium, Croatia sounds like a third place game.
And Croatia to win the third place playoff, and England to win the final.
Whoa!
I love this. We're all
going all Eastern Conference on that.
I don't know. I'm going to make my cross-sport reference for Tom.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. We're at the 43rd minute.
Jordan Pickford is playing like a goalie who's going to go win the Stanley Cup.
He kind of is.
We got Fleury.
He kind of is, actually. But yeah, did Fleury win the Stanley Cup?
Did not win. Good point.
So
that's fair, but that's just what I think of when I always think of hockey when there's a goalie who's just the standing on his head phrase, whatever have you. Pickford and Courtois have both been unreal this tournament. Pickford probably edges it a little bit for me just because you didn't see this coming. The dude's 23. He's he went to his first big Premier League side this season.
Yeah. No, it's been incredible. And he wasn't necessarily the surefire starter, actually.
No, not even a little bit. Like
Jack Butland had a real case to take that job too. So yeah, no, it's been incredible. And I mean, you're right. Courtois was brilliant against Brazil. And Lloris has had a fine tournament. He's made some huge saves. I mean, he made one of the biggest saves in the entire tournament against Uruguay.
And shout out to Croatia's keeper Subasic. He's been good too. He was important in penalties.
He's been super important in penalties, and I think he already has the record for most penalty saves in a World Cup. So all four goalies,
all 4 goalies have been awesome.
Yes.
But I don't know. It just England at the point that England have gotten to is you don't want to say it feels like their year, but this is as far as they've gotten in my lifetime, literally, because the last time they got this far was in 1990. And I don't know. I'm feeling it. So England to win the final. Let's go.
I love it.
I like it. I wouldn't predict it, but I like it.
I'm going for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we have those games coming up. The semifinals are Tuesday for France, Belgium, Wednesday for Croatia, England, both the early afternoon kickoffs. Third place game on Saturday. The final on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. So
how silly that they do a third place game still. Like, who gives a rip? Like, that's...
I suppose for the team, like, if the U.S. was in the third place game, you'd watch it, though. Right?
Yes, and it would mean something to them. But these other, like most countries, it means little.
Yeah.
And even if the U.S. made it all the way to a semifinal, you'd still feel really disappointed they're in the third place game. And like winning it means, and Brazil was in the third place game, the last third place game, and they totally mailed it in, and it was stupid. So I don't know why they still play the third place game. It's kind of odd to me. But
yeah, it is what it is. But it'll happen. Yeah. So it's gonna be sick. So next weekend you've got third place playoff and final. And here's your thing. More watchable game. The World Cup third place game or Minnesota United Real Salt Lake on Saturday night.
Oh.
That's...
If you're gonna talk,
honestly,
if you're gonna trash talk the third place game, how far are you gonna trash talk it?
I mean, I'm required to watch the Minnesota United games though, so it's not really up for debate for me. So.
I'm asking you about quality. I'm not asking you about which one are you gonna watch.
Honestly, I'm really fascinated to see how the 5-3-2 fares come Saturday night. I'm gonna be honest. I'm always, dude. Come on, like I've been covering this team for years. Like, you think I'm sick of Ibsening? Like, no, I can't wait to see the next Ibsen play. Like, let's go.
Oh boy. Yep, I'm with you. So.
You think I want to miss Darwin nutmeg 3 people, but then pass it to someone on his team and then they mess that up? You think I'm done watching that? I love that stuff.
All right. So
you think I'm done watching Calvo make crazy mistakes and forget to man mark? I'm not done with that. I love that.
On record that Nic Hallett thinks Minnesota United Real Salt Lake will be a better game than the World Cup third.
I love that take, by the way. Great take.
That is on record.
You think I'm tired of waiting for Bobby Shuttleworth to make the most stunning save like once a game? No. Like I can't. I'm just always on the edge of my seat waiting for that moment to happen.
I don't know if you're on the edge of your seat. I've sat by you for a lot of your games now.
All right. You caught me. I'm chill.
There's a lot of soccer this week, but it is the end of the World Cup. We'll have World Cup breakdown stuff for you next weekend. We'll have 2 more United games. I'm going to go to the Saprissa game on Wednesday because I'm interested to see exactly what United team plays and what they look like. I think that game's going to be really interesting just to see what's going on that maybe we don't necessarily get to see in the big time. It's going to be interesting to welcome an international squad to the team. You expect Francisco Calvo, if anyone, to play in that game at least for a little bit as a former Saprissa player himself, and it's just going to be fun to watch. So we will have all of your coverage of the Real Salt Lake game, the Saprissa game, the opening of the transfer window, and the end of the World Cup next week. I am David Naylor. You can find me on Twitter at Prof. Cedar, Nic Hallett, at Prince Hallett, Tom Schreier, at T Schreier3. This has been the Minnesota Soccer Podcast. We will see you guys next week.